When you look at affordable drop tops, Mazda pretty much has the segment all figured out. Despite America's insatiable appetite for crossovers, Mazda consistently sells just under 1,000 of these every month. Now the ND, the current model, it's been around since 2015, so for 2019, Mazda is giving this car a significant refresh under the hood with an additional 26 horsepower on tap and about 700 more revs. How much better has Mazda made the Miata? That's what we're here to find out. So when you look at the design of the 2019 model, this is usually where I would tell you about all the changes that a manufacturer has made. However, as you can see, Mazda hasn't made any changes to the front end. It looks identical to 2018 model. And honestly, they didn't really need to, although it would have been nice to be able to distinguish it. This particular one is a GT trim. You'll know it's a GT because of the color. This beautiful external eternal blue pearl is not available on any other trims. And all Miatas will come standard with LED headlights, LED low and high beams. The GTs, they also swivel. They're adaptive. All of them will also come with LED daytime running lights down here, but the turn signal is still an incandescent. No fog lights are available on the Miata still. Now you can see the Roadster's proportions haven't changed. It's still a very low and wide car. It's still available in 3 trims. There's the Sport, Grand Touring, or Club, and then Grand Touring. The RF model is only available in Club and the Grand Touring trim. This one being the soft top model has the the lower trim. Now the wheels also haven't really changed on the GT. These are still the gray finish 17-inch wheels on 205/45 summer tires. Honestly, I kind of wish, again, they made slight tweaks to the wheels. I believe if you guys go for like the Club or the Sport, Mazda changed the finish on the wheels, but the design itself hasn't actually changed. Now, for 2019, one thing Mazda did make is they made the GT available with a GTS package, which basically turns this into a Club with all the performance hardware. So it has a limited slip diff in the back with the manual transmission. It has the Bilstein shocks. Now, with the Bilstein shocks, they've also given it a sport suspension. And as you can see, this is a pretty small Roadster. The Miata's proportion hasn't changed. This is literally about a foot shorter than something like a Subaru BRZ, which is kind of this car's direct competitor. Now at the back, again, no changes you can see from just looking at it. It's still pretty much the same. I highly recommend getting the rear wings or rear deck lid spoiler to kind of give the rear a little bit more of a aggressive look. And one indication this is a 2019 model is that backup camera. Mazda had to place it over there. I guess because they said it was for the best viewing angle. I'm surprised they didn't hide it here or just hide it somewhere else over here, because it just looks a little bit like an afterthought. Mazda also said they tweaked the exhaust. They say the exhaust is a little bit freer flowing. It has a deeper tone. We'll go into the test drive later on. I thought it sounded pretty much the same, which is a good thing. Now, when you look at the trunk of the Miata, there's still that hidden button down here. And when you open up the trunk, it still measures at around 4.6 cubic feet of space. Don't expect to find a spare tire in there. You just have a fix-a-flat inflator kit. And it's a pretty small trunk. It's something you kind of have to get used to with Miatas. You need to make sure you always pack light. Moving on to the interior of the new Miata, I want to first talk about the key fob. All 2019 Miatas now come standard with the company's smart key access system with intelligent access key, push button start. You can see same Mazda key fob. Mazda definitely needs to work on a newer key fob design, although this key still is really nice and it's a good size. It feels really nice in your pocket or in your hands. As you approach the Miata, you're going to notice the same door handle on the side, on either side of the vehicle. If you touch this button here, it locks the doors for you. If you want to unlock it, there's no sensor on the back of the handle. You have to touch the button again, and that unlocks the door for you. Now, my tester has a very nice two-tone interior color. It's actually the first Miata that I've gotten for a week to test that's the two-tone. This is not new, however. This interior color was available on the pre-refreshed Miatas. You can see these are basically the seats you get with the Grand Touring trim. They're a manual seat, 4-way adjustable, actually probably a 6-way because you have a little adjustment there. The Club models are available with the Recaro with the suede Alcantara that I showed you on the 2018 model year, but the GTs kind of go with a more luxury car touch. You can see the color is carried over into the interior with more of that beige stitching or the beige leather contrasting there, some imitation carbon fiber trim. There's a new brown top option available that replaces the red top for 2019. This one just has the standard black top interior. But getting in the Miata, they haven't changed that. It's still a really low car that you have to fall into. So if you guys don't like falling into low cars, you may not like the way this car feels. But once you get back in, or once you get down in here, the Miata feels really nice. It's really low to the ground and you can see really well out of it. And then when you shut the door here, it still sounds pretty decent considering this car is all convertible. It's a very stiff chassis. Now to start the vehicle up, it hasn't changed. Put the clutch in because I have the 6-speed manual. Push this button here to fire up the engine. Now you can see the first indication that you're in the 2019 model is that tach. It's got a higher Redline, 7,500 RPM Redline. Really free revving engine, so I'm really looking forward to getting this one out on the road, showing you guys how it drives. That new color LCD is also included on the 2019 models. Before, you had to get the hardtop to get that, whereas the 2018 models had the monochromatic non-color display. So that's really nice that Mazda included that on all the trims for 2019. Now you can see, looking at the rest of this interior, it hasn't changed. Still have that 7-inch Mazda Connect infotainment system, no Android Auto and no Apple CarPlay. Still hard touch plastic here on this part of the dash. The Fiat 500, I want to say, has actually a soft touch injection molded plastic. Now the Grand Touring clubs will give you real leather and stitching on this lower portion here. Love the two-tone here. My 2016 definitely didn't have that, but it had red stitching on the dash, which was nice. The door panels here, this is obviously hard touch plastic, but it's nice and soft right here where your elbows are rest. There's a nice little grab handle right here where you can put your cell phone. The windows are still one touch express down, but not automatic express up. Wish Mazda had added that for 2019, but it's not too big of a deal. Down here, there's a couple more buttons to turn off the stability and the lane departure alert that the Grand Touring models give you. The steering wheel hasn't changed, still really nice leather. I want to say this got a little bit fatter though, which definitely feels nicer in your hands. You have some aluminum trim accenting it, cruise control and your phone controls over there. The biggest change though, again for 2019, has to do with the steering wheel. It now telescopes. The adjustment of range is kind of small, but the fact that it now tilts and telescopes is a first for a Miata. Mazda says this added like 7 pounds, if I remember correctly, so it's nice that Mazda gave you that. It makes this car a little bit easier for taller drivers to get in it and feel a little bit more comfortable. Now, another new change for 2019, the backup camera, when you put it into reverse here, it gives you just a pretty standard backup camera. No trajectory, it has the distance markers, no parking sensors. The camera is mounted in a very awkward angle and the graining's not great, but it's definitely nice to finally get a backup camera in a Miata where you couldn't even get that before. Now, as you guys know, the Mazda Connect infotainment system, when you go to the home screen here, this is what it shows you. It's also a touchscreen when the vehicle is in park or when it's stopped. It's a touchscreen. The rest, if you want to use it, is control from this Mazda Connect controller. The navigation screen, again, hasn't changed. Mazda probably needs to work on an update soon. This GPS system works okay. The graphics, again, it's pretty similar to what you get in a Garmin or TomTom. It doesn't have the pinch zoom capability, just kind of like you can trace around it with your finger, but it definitely gets the job done. It's nothing super special. No Android Auto and no Apple CarPlay still is included on this one. The 2018 Mazda 6 and CX-9 are the first to get it. I'm surprised Mazda just didn't add it for this generation, or for this refreshed Mazda MX-5 Miata, which is a little annoying. Down here you can see single zone automatic climate control, which is included on the Grand Touring trim, which is nice. You have 3-level heated seats, no cooled seats, a nice little storage area here with 2 USB ports, an aux port over there. The 6-speed manual has now been updated with a dual mass flywheel, which is supposed to aid in smoothness. The throws haven't really changed, still one of the best transmissions on the market. Reverse is accessed by pushing down. It's next to first right there. Definitely want to get your Miata with a 6-speed manual. The automatic just really blurs everything and makes this car feel a lot more sluggish. Now down here, Mazda Connect infotainment controller again. It's not a touchpad or anything. It just works like a little scrolly wheel. You can kick it. You can push in on the center. You have a volume knob right here, favorites button there. This is slightly padded right here where your elbow will rest, and then it gives you a pretty small amount of storage. You can see I've got my sunglasses and a few keys in there. The cup holders haven't really changed. You still pull this out. You can put it over here if you'd like to give you, I guess to give you a cup holder here next to the shifter, but it does take up space. No glove compartment here, hasn't changed either. Instead, Mazda gives you a small little glove compartment here, which is actually pretty big. It's pretty deep, so it's a good amount of storage. The top also hasn't changed. It's still a manual operation, or you can go for the RF with the power top. Just kind of push this down and then push the top and throw it over your shoulder. And it's literally done with one hand. It's got a really nice assist feature. And then if you want to put it back up, just pull this lever here, grab it by the handle on either side of the latch. Don't grab it by the latch, and then kind of just pull it over, and then it closes with one little latch. But I mean, overall, the interior of the Miata hasn't changed that much. A couple of nice improvements here and there. Still feels very cozy and cramped. So if you guys are over 6 feet tall, you may not fit in this car. But with the new telescoping wheel, it makes it a little bit easier, but just know that you better like your passenger next to you because this car is very narrow and you're basically sitting really close to each other. So although Mazda didn't make very many changes on the outside, they spent all the money underneath the hood, and this is honestly where they needed to add the money to this car. Now, the engine is still the 2-liter SkyActiv-G gasoline direct injection 4-cylinder with a very high compression ratio. However, Mazda has tweaked the way this engine breathes, the way it inhales, the way it exhales, and they've also given it an ECU tune. It now makes 181 horsepower, a 26 horsepower boost over the 2018 model. Torque is also up like 3 pound-feet to about 151 pound-feet of torque. Now I know 181 horsepower doesn't really sound like a lot. However, in a car that weighs around 2,300 pounds, it's a significant improvement. And what Mazda's also done, because they make the engine breathe a little bit better, it now revs higher. The Redline is at 7,500 RPM. The old one was at like 6,700 RPM. So they've really made some significant changes. Now Miatas are still available with either a 6-speed manual, which has an updated clutch with a dual mass flywheel, or a 6-speed automatic. Don't get the automatic, get the manual transmission. It really transforms the Miata. They've also managed to improve the fuel economy a little bit. 2634 is what is rated with the 6-speed manual. Premium gas is recommended. You can see this one has the strut tower brace because it's a GT with the GTS package, so it kind of stiffens up the car. All Miatas are all rear-wheel drive. You guys have been waiting. Let's get it out on the road and see how it all performs, shall we? So for the moment I've been waiting for, I was really excited when Mazda announced more power for 2019. Was kind of sad that my 16 didn't have that extra power, but you know what? I don't even have that car anymore, but I've always loved Miatas. I'll always have a soft spot for the ND. So without further ado, let's get out on the road in the 19 model with this higher revving engine and see if it really makes a difference. Now Mazda says they have tweaked the exhaust, and it doesn't really sound that different for me. It still has that throaty, you know, deep burble that Miatas have always had. It's a nice sounding 4-cylinder, but I do notice that the engine definitely revs up a little bit quicker now. It's just a more free revving engine. It breathes better, which is what the main goal was of this 19 model. But basically, first setting off in this car, it still feels just like a Miata. It's very small, it's very lightweight, it's very playful. It doesn't feel like too much of a serious car. That's the one thing about this car, is it's always just enjoyed, you know, basically just having a ball. It puts a huge smile on your face when you're driving this thing, and you don't even really need to be driving it all that quickly to enjoy this car. Now, with this trim level, the GTS package, it's basically a GT with the club's suspension upgrade. So you have the Bilstein shocks, the limited slip differential, the strut tower brace underneath the hood, as I said earlier. And you definitely notice that the car feels a little bit stiffer. Not really so much so stiffer, but if you've driven a club and a GT model, you'll notice that the club feels a little bit more taut. That now carries over to the GT trim, although you cannot get the Brembo brakes and the BBS wheels and the Recaros on the GT trim, which is fine. This is still the more luxury-oriented trim, but I really love how Mazda kind of addressed that complaint that I had. And this thing still rides pretty nicely, even though it has the Bilstein shocks. I mean, it's not a, you know, it doesn't ride like a Buick or anything, or like a luxury car, but for a little small roadster that's this, you know, lightweight and tiny, got a short wheelbase, it actually rides pretty nicely. And visibility in here, great still, especially with the top down. With the top up, you do depend on the blind spot monitoring a little bit for cross traffic alert to help you see behind you. But other than that, you kind of just drive this thing and it's just really nice. But kind of just driving it at normal paces, you're not going to notice the extra power immediately. It still feels, you know, pretty much the same until you put your foot down. Oh, look at that. Look at how this thing revs. Wow. The revs are so nice. Now I'm going to turn off the lane departure alert because it's annoying, just like my car. It rumbles for you, but so much response. Now, down low, it's still that nice torquey engine that has plenty of low-end pull, but when you pass 5,000 RPM, whereas the old engine didn't taper off, but you kind of knew that you didn't have many revs left, this one I'm kind of having to look at the tach because I still have another, 1,000, 2,500 of revs with an additional 700 increase in the Redline. Look at this thing. Look at it. It just keeps pulling. And now it doesn't pull with the ferocity of like a Honda VTEC engine, like the old S2000 comes to mind, but this thing has more low-end torque than the S2000, and it also is realized at like 4,000 RPM, which is lovely. God, this car is just so responsive. It's so much fun, even though, I've driven so many cars that are so much more expensive, way more horsepower, I can still get into a Miata and appreciate it, even though it doesn't pull as hard as something like a Porsche, like a Boxster. My Cayman comes to mind. I can still have a ball, a great time in a Miata, so don't despair. Jeez, this thing just revs for days. Oh, it's nice. It's really nice. And then when you, what you notice with the limited slip diff is this car puts the power down a little bit better. If you want to like brake torque it a little bit, or launch it at a little bit more of aggressive RPM, it doesn't wheel hop as much. There's a little bit less wheel spin, but whatever it does do, it's very comical. It's a lot of fun. And the steering in this car, they've retuned the suspension a little bit. The electric power steering's been tweaked slightly. It's still a really fun car. You're going to notice that right off the bat. The suspension still has a good amount of body lean, but the Miata's body roll is a little bit better controlled now, so you don't really notice it as much. And the car's just such a blast to drive. I mean, 2,332 pounds, which I guess it's actually 2,340 pounds because this new model in general is like 10 pounds heavier, which is totally negligible. But from the very comfortable seats to the great feel, the noises it makes, the Miata is still one of the best sports cars you can buy. Everything's just kind of been improved. Now, in terms of the 0 to 60, I would say that it's only been improved by maybe 0.1, 0.2 seconds. It's going to depend on how well of a shifter you are and if you get the launch right. This car, again, is still a little bit of a momentum car. But now, with 181 horsepower, it's definitely got the power that, some people are looking for. The old one wasn't even really lacking in power, but now what this one offers is a little bit more top-end power when you need it. Now, attacking back roads is definitely an activity you're going to be looking to do every morning when the roads are empty in your Miata, and that hasn't changed with this new one. What the GTS package gives you is basically all the luxury goodies with the performance upgrades that the club model gives you. So it's kind of a win-win situation, and it's a trim level I highly recommend. Now, a couple of new things that the GT trim now includes is it now includes Mazda's Smart City brake support. So this car has automatic emergency braking, which I think it only activates at higher speeds above 18 miles an hour. I haven't actually seen it work. I'm not going to physically try to get the system to work, but it's the first time we've seen that in a Miata. The GT also gives you that lane departure alert, which doesn't actually steer for you. Still no adaptive cruise on this car, and that's okay with me. The blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert is always a joy to have. So a lot of people are going to get into the GT and find a really lot to like about this in terms of the features. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is probably the last thing that Mazda needs to add, which I'm hoping they'll do in the middle of 2019. This car is still a one drift happy car. The tail just wants to come out every time you have the traction control off, and it's so easy, it's so controllable. It's what makes the Miata such a joy. If you guys are kind of a beginner, you've never had a sports car before, this just makes the perfect one. Damn, this thing just wants to pull all the way to that 7,000 RPM Redline. So nice. Oh yeah! That's so nice. Wow. This is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Miata. This is the engine that it should have launched with back in 2015, but that's okay. Better late than never. It's such a joy, such a responsive car. Now, when you guys are done hooning the car, which it's really easy to do, honestly, and you can still surprisingly get good gas mileage in this car. Now, Mazda improved it by like 1 or 2 mpg, depending on the transmission. In my weeks worth of testing, right off the bat, I was getting 25 miles to the gallon without even trying, and that's honestly driving it like a jerk, the way a Miata is supposed to be driven. This car does recommend premium gas. I'd highly recommend putting premium in it. It has a really small gas tank, like 11 gallons, so it's really not that expensive to fill up. But it's definitely something you want to do with your Miata. Man, what Mazda's done here is they've made the ND Miata even better than the pre-refresh model. And when you find your favorite back road, when it's empty and there's no stupid slow trucks or slow cars in front of you, you're gonna basically have a big smile on your face all day long. And the Miata still proves that you don't have to spend a crap ton amount of money to have fun in a sports car. You don't need that much power also to have fun. This is still enough power to, let you have fun without getting you into too much trouble. The back end will step out when you want it to. It's a great car to kind of learn how to drive stick-on, learn how to drive a rear drive car because the dynamics are different. And I hope Mazda continues to build Miatas for years and years to come. So at the beginning of this review, I asked a very simple question. Has Mazda made the Miata even better for 2019? And the short answer, pretty much yes. They took everything we liked about the ND and just improved it. The extra horsepower really was something that I didn't really complain too much that Mazda needed to add, but with the additional revs, it just makes the Miata an even better roadster and kind of differentiates itself from its main competition, the Subaru BRZ and the Toyota 86. This is just a better sports car than those in general, with its more refined ride, its smoother shifter, its better handling, it's more easier to engage clutch. And with the addition of the telescoping steering wheel, I'm not going to say that you can easily fit in here if you're 6 feet tall, but it does make finding a more comfortable driving position that much better in this car if you actually do plan to daily drive one. So if you guys are looking to purchase the 2019 Miata, what's it going to cost? Well, Mazda hasn't actually announced full pricing on the soft top version just yet. I know the 2018 model starts a tick over $25,000 for the base Sport. They have announced pricing for the RF, which is around $32,400. This one, when I looked at the Moroni stickers for $32,650 for that GTS package, Mazda charges a really, really cheap $550 for the performance suspension, the limited slip diff, the strut tower brace, making this still a true bargain in the sports car world. Now, keep in mind, if you guys go for the RF trim, that can actually cost closer to around $37,000 when it's fully loaded. But overall, if you guys are looking for a pure driving experience and one of the cheapest sports cars you can get with the ability to put the top down, the Miata still deserves to be at the very top of your list. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2019 Mazda MX-5 Miata Grand Touring. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.